How do I know what I think until I see what I say?
The Green Notebook, carried by military leaders around the world. Within those pages are sweat, tears, triumphs, and the hard-won lessons of life. Lessons worth sharing. Each week, the team dives into the notebooks of military leaders, business professionals, authors, athletes and coaches, and entertainers to share lessons and help you lead with the best version of yourself.
Hey, it's Joe here, and every morning before I crack open a book or sit down to do some writing, the first thing I do is brew an amazing cup of Alpha coffee. They make premium 100% Arabica coffee, and Alpha has some of my favorite blends. They have Dawn Patrol, which is a nice medium light breakfast blend. I also enjoy Charlie Don't Surf, which is a medium Kona blend. And I even get to take Alpha coffee to work with me because they also make K-Cups. Not only do they have great coffee, they're a great veteran-owned business who has shipped over 20,000 bags of coffee to deployed troops. They also offer a 10% discount to members of the military and first responders. And Alpha Coffee has been an awesome company to partner with at From the Green Notebook. So taste the Alpha difference and purchase their coffee today at www.alpha.coffee or via Amazon Prime. Welcome back to another episode of From the Green Notebook. I'm your host, Joe Byerly, and this week we're diving into the notebook of Marshall Goldsmith. Marshall has been recognized as the world's leading executive coach, and in this interview, he shares insights from his career helping C-suite executives learn to lead with the best version of themselves. And we also talk a lot about the lessons from his latest book, The Earned Life. We talk about the importance of learning what motivates us, finding people to help complement our weaknesses, how to adopt a growth mindset, and something that I wrestled with for the longest time, and it's this tension between aspiration and ambition. Now, I recorded this interview several months ago, and I finally got a chance to listen to it the other day, and I had forgotten how much great advice Marshall shared with me in this interview, and I learned so much the second time around. So I'm really pumped to share it with you now. So grab your green notebooks, and please welcome to the show, Marshall Goldsmith.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, Marshall, I'm really looking forward to this talk. I read The Earned Life, Lose Regret, and Choose Fulfillment last year when it came out. And I keep thinking, and this has been running through my mind as I've been preparing for this interview, is that you've been an executive coach for decades now. And so I guess the first question I have is, how has your definition of fulfillment changed since you started out and then where you're at now in your life and everybody that you've seen come and go along the way?
Well, if you look at my evolution in coaching, a couple of changes. So I'd say some major points. Point number one is I'm coach of Alan Mulally, who's probably the greatest corporate leader in the world in the last 30 years. He was a guy that the Ford stock went from 101 to 1840, totally turned the company around, 97% approval rating for every employee in a union company. So I had the honor of being Alan's coach. So I said to Alan, of all the people I coached, I spent the least amount of time coaching you. You were great to start with, and you improved the most. I said, what should I learn about coaching from you? And he said, you got one job as a coach, work with great people. He said, you work with great people, you win. You work with the wrong people, you lose. That was a long time ago. That changed my life. So a lot of my work in coaching is I just work with great people. If you look at The Earned Life, read the names of the people who endorsed that book. These are impressive people. And they're wonderful people. So I feel very blessed. So my first learning in the evolution of coaching is I used to think the key variable for great coaching was the coach. No, it's not about the coach. It's about the people being coached. So I've learned that it's not about me and my ego. It's about them and how great they are, number one. Then my coaching over the years was largely about helping people achieve positive long-term change in leadership behavior, helping successful leaders get better. So you do a Google search, helping successful leaders, in quotes, the first 500 hits, 400 are me, basically my brand. As I've grown older, though, and that's what led to my book, The Earned Life, I also now focus just on helping people have a great life. Well, the people I coach have already achieved so much that in some cases, me helping them achieve a little more doesn't seem that important. For example, one guy's worth $4 billion. You know what I said? What am I supposed to do? Boost you up to 4.1? What does it matter? Right. And so now I really spend a lot more time just trying to help people have a good life.
Do you see success changing, as a leader gets older, more mature in their career? Do you see the definition of success changing for a lot of these people?
Yeah, I think when we're younger, it's much more about achievement and about me. And then as you grow up into the ladder, it needs to be more and more about them. And so, to me, a great achiever, it might be all about me. So you're kind of working your way up, making your point, whatever, nothing wrong with that. Yet leadership really is about letting go, and it's more about them. So I think that is a great challenge. It's hard not to be right and prove you're right and prove yourself. I have a funny story. One night, General Shinseki was head of the Army. So I was with a group of 2 to 4-star generals, and he was there, and I was having dinner with him. So he asked me a question. He said, Marshall, who's your favorite customer? I said, sir, my favorite customer is smart, dedicated, hardworking, driven to achieve, creative, entrepreneurial, cares about the company and customers, great values, high integrity, and is a stubborn, opinionated know-it-all that never wants to be wrong. I said, sir, do you think any of the generals in this very room may fit such a description? You know what he said? He said, Marshall, we have a target-rich opportunity.
Wow, that's about right. That's about right.
I love that line. We have a target-rich opportunity.
And I think that, to your point, I'm 19 years into my career right now.
Yes.
And for the first, I would argue, 16, it was about me looking up.
Yeah.
Looking up the ladder and climbing. And now I see it more as me looking down and pulling as many people up as I can in the short time that I have.
I think that's good because you're going to look back on your life and be proud of that.
Yeah. It's just amazing. Why is it that changes in folks?
A couple things happen. One is you make peace with life. And two is you realize that as you grow up, you have a legacy to leave. And this is your legacy. You're not going to be there. What are you leaving behind? And you have some status or rank. That's nice. But what you're really leaving behind is all the people you helped.
I've got a ton of questions. I'm looking down at my list right now. Some of the stuff that you talk about in the book, it's amazing because, again, you've coached these high-powered executives. And I think a lot of times about the story I tell myself about what I do and the limiting stories that I wrestle with. What are some of the stories that you've seen? Because there's one story in particular that I'm thinking about. It's about a CEO who was considering going to work for a nonprofit.
Right.
And there was something holding him back. And I was just wondering if we could talk about that a little bit.
That was back in the days when you had to retire at a certain age. He was a CEO of one of the big accounting firms. And he was just too full of himself, and he would take these job applications, and you know what he would say? Well, I don't need the money. Well, he kept wondering why he kept getting rejected. I said, well, you're getting rejected because you act like a jerk. I wouldn't want to work for you. They all know you don't need the money. They're not stupid. They read your bio, and it's kind of demeaning for them. Don't do that. Well, one thing I teach people when they transition, I've done 9 programs in my house with transitioning executives, is when you leave that other job, you're in sales. And the rest of the world doesn't have to buy. You got to sell. And you're the product. And the higher up you go, in many ways, the harder it is because you can get a job, yet you don't want a job. You want to do something meaningful with your life. And it's not that easy. So I have a lot of fun working with retired CEOs. I had a funny story. One guy at one of our little clubs was Mike Duke. Mike was the CEO of Walmart. So Mike said, I had this joke I told. And they said, people love that little joke, always laughing. And, Walmart, very sensitive, didn't offend anyone. Love my joke. Then he said, I retired from Walmart. And I'm in this group, and I tell my little joke. He said, nobody laughs. He said, well, they must be grumpy. It's another group, tell a joke. Nobody laughs. Finally, he said, my wife said, Mike, you idiot. Did you really believe that joke was funny? Well, see, when he was CEO of Walmart, that joke was real funny. Ho, ho, ho.
Yeah.
How about not the CEO anymore? Not so funny. Yeah, when you got 4 stars, you tell jokes, guess what? Ho, 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 ho. They're hilarious, right?
Yeah, I'm in charge of people right now, Marshall, and every joke I tell is funny. Every decision I make is the right one. I'm like 6'5" and good looking. So
Yeah.
isn't that amazing? I think I read somewhere that People talk about power corrupts, but it's not that power corrupts, it's that it exposes our weaknesses. It actually magnifies our weaknesses when we're in these positions.
Well, what happened is any human or animal will replicate behavior that's followed by positive reinforcement. Every time you get promoted, you get more positive reinforcement. And we fall into a trap called the superstition trap. How's it work? I behave this way and I am successful. Therefore, I must be successful because I behave this way. No, you do behave this way and you are successful, and you're successful because you're doing many things right. And in spite of doing things that are dumb. I've never seen anybody so wonderful, had nothing on the in spite of list. So we all got something to improve.
That's refreshing. And, one of the things that we a lot of times talk about leaders, and I want you to get into this because I think this is so important. We'll say that this leader is motivated.
Yeah.
But motivated is really a hollow term, isn't it?
Well, it's a hollow term for two reasons. One, nobody's motivated to do everything. So there's no such thing as a motivated person. People are motivated to do something. Like you, I could bet in your life, there are certain things in your life you're highly motivated to do, and you're gung-ho and you love doing them. There are other elements of your life where if somebody doesn't beat you over the head, you won't do it.
That is absolutely correct. Yes.
Well, it doesn't mean you're a motivated or unmotivated person. Motivated to what? One of my old mentors was Dr. Paul Hersey. He and Ken Blanchard invented situational leadership. And one thing he taught me is there's no such thing as a motivated person. Motivation is a function of the person relative to a specific task. I'm motivated to do what I do. I love my work, right? On the other hand, I'm not motivated to work out every day. I got to have somebody kind of pound me over the head to make sure I do it. Well, it doesn't mean I'm a motivated or unmotivated person. I'm just motivated to do some things.
Do you think that a lot of times people tend to try to blanket their motivation and don't actually take the time to think, what are the things that motivate me day to day in my job?
Oh, yeah, I totally hear that. I just called today with someone who wants to be me when he grows up. I get a lot of those calls, right? And yeah, I want to be you and coach famous people, blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, are you investing? Are you writing books? No. Have you really worked hard at this and that? No. Well, yeah, you want to be me, you just don't want to pay the price. Well, yeah, a lot of people are motivated to make money or be in shape. They're just not motivated to work out. Well, the point is not I'm motivated to get in shape. I'm motivated to work out. That's the key.
There's a great story that I'll have to tell you. Like, I'm motivated to interview people for the podcast. I love doing it. I love doing the research.
Yeah.
And this evening, as it's about 45 minutes, I'm getting ready to finally compile my last little notes based off the notes I wrote in your book. I realized that I left your book at work and I didn't bring it home with me. And so I quickly had to go through about 3 or 4 different notebooks, compile everything together. But it's fine because this is what every aspect of what we're doing right now motivates me to do it. And I'm able to power through when stuff like this happens.
Well, you know what? That is a wonderful example. I'm actually not motivated to do what you're doing right now. Somebody told me I should have a podcast. And then I was on Guy Kawasaki's podcast. And that guy's amazing. He, like you, does a lot of homework. He takes it seriously. Wonderful questions. What a great guy. I had him on my podcast. I thought, I don't like this. It's a lot of hard work. I have to study things. I called Guy up and I said, Guy, you just changed my life. Thank you. He said, well, how did I change your life? I said, I thought I wanted to have my own podcast. No, it's too much work. I don't want to do it. And you just saved me a lot of time. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I think what would you advise somebody who is in their minds motivated to do, or, motivated with something and they're putting whatever title X is on the wall?
Yeah.
What would you say to them to really figure out if they're motivated?
Well, here's the thing. Have you been doing this by yourself? Do you want to do this when you wake up in the morning? If the answer is yes, well, that's fine. If the answer is no, get help. See, that's a key thing I make in the book, get help. One thing I talk about in the book is the daily question process. Now, daily question process is an amazing process. It takes 3 minutes a day, costs nothing, help you get better at almost anything. Half the people start doing that, quit in 2 weeks. Why they quit? Not because it does not work. They quit because it does work. It's hard to face every day yourself. I've had someone call me up almost every day for 25 years to make sure I do this. Why? My name is Marshall Goldsmith. I've got ranked #1 leadership thinker and coach in the whole world. I have to have somebody call me every day. Why? I am too cowardly and undisciplined to do any of this stuff by myself. I need help. And you know what? It's okay. We all need help. Who are we kidding?
Yeah.
If I could do all that stuff on my own, it would have been done.
Yeah. So, even for me writing, like I think about my writing process, and I have a developmental coach who is, he's in Romania. His stepdaughter, they both work together, is in Texas.
Yeah,
They help me with that. And then my copy editor, Courtney, is in the UK.
good.
But like, if I tried to do this on my own, it would completely wear me down. It's a team approach. And even the blog itself, Dan's helping with all the editing, Connor's helping with the social media.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything's a team sport, Marshall.
I agree. And look, my 4 best-selling books, or my 5 best-selling books, I didn't write. It says, if you look at the cover, Marshall Goldsmith, Mark Ryder. He writes the books. I have the idea. He writes the books. He's my agent and writing partner. We have a great relationship. We sold, 2.5 million books together. I didn't write those books. He did. It's my ideas and he writes. We have a great partnership. I'm a good writer too. I'm a very good writer. I could not have written any of those best-selling books by myself. I'm not ashamed of that.
Yes.
Hey, my name is Marshall. I need help. Everyone I coach needs help.
That's a great point, because I think when I see Marshall, when I see some of these top CEOs, even when I see top generals, I'm thinking, man, this person is greater than great, and I just need to do these things. But in reality, yeah, like I guess step one is recognize that you can't do everything by yourself, and that we all have weaknesses, we all have blind spots,
Of course.
and we need help working through those things.
Of course. I mean, I just had the privilege to mention about 3 weeks ago, and with being General Insurance Saki and General Austin at the memorial service for Frances Hesselbein. And both of those guys got up and said how much she helped them. Well, they're not ashamed of that.
Yeah, that's powerful. So in addition to asking for help, I think another important thing is, do you like doing the things that's required of you to get to the thing that you're motivated? So an example for me is in college, I had this vision that I would walk into a party, I would pick up a guitar, and I would just start playing a song. And then all of a sudden everybody would come around me and be like, man, that's a great song, sing along, whatever. And then I actually tried to play the guitar. And after about a couple of lessons, it was the worst thing ever. And I had zero desire to keep going with it. And that's where that dreamed in. But I was motivated before I actually started trying to do the things to get me to my goal, to play the guitar.
You were motivated to be the star of the party.
Yes.
You were not motivated to take lesson after lesson after lesson after lesson and pay the price for that. See, the question is, are you motivated to pay the price? Not, are you motivated to do the job? Are you motivated to pay the price?
And that's a great segue into leadership too, because leadership isn't all standing in front of people and put them laughing at your jokes. It's making tough decisions.
Right.
It's getting the call in the middle of the night. It's, bearing a weight and responsibility that I don't think a lot of people truly appreciate.
Well, it's hard. And Peter Drucker taught me a great lesson that if the people listening learn nothing but this lesson, they'll be better leaders. They'll be better to influence people, have a happier life. I've had to repeat this lesson over and over again, literally 1,000 times. Here's the lessons. Number one, our mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to prove we're smart and not to prove we're right. We get so lost proving how smart we are and right we are. We're not here on earth to prove we're smart. We're here to make a positive difference. Number two, every decision in life is made by the person who has the power to make the decision. Make peace with that. Not the smartest person, the best person, a wonderful person. Decision makers make decisions. Point three, if I need to influence you to make a positive difference in the world and you have the power to make the decision, there's one word to describe you. That word is customer. One word to describe me. That word is salesperson. Customers don't have to buy. Salespeople have to sell. Sell what you can sell. Change what you can change. If you can sell it, sell it. You can change it, change it. You can't sell it, you can't change it. Salute the flag and go make it work.
We're going to go ahead and end the podcast there because that was absolutely amazing. I want to transition to something you talk about in the book that I think is really important. And it goes back to what you've been saying. You talk about all the people you've coached, And the importance of, asking for help and learning, so that we can grow.
Right.
But it's this idea of the every breath paradigm.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times we get stuck in, well, this is the way I am,
Right.
and I'm not going to change. But you're looking beyond that.
Well, I love this concept of the every breath paradigm. Basically, it's a Buddhist philosophy concept. Every time I take a new breath, it's a new me. And by the way, if you go through life saying that's just the way I am, well, guess what? That's probably just the way you're going to be. And you're probably not going to change. And even if you do try to change, you'll feel like a phony. Why? Well, if that's the real you, I guess anything else isn't the real you. Well, any of us can change. Anybody can change anything unless they have an incurable genetic defect. Well, if you don't have some genetic defect, you physically can change. We can't change if we put ourselves in a box, though. And the key is the every breath paradigm. Every time I take a breath, it's a new me. We start over in life. The other good thing about that is, forgive yourself for the mistakes you've made. Don't carry that around in life. We all make mistakes. We're all humans. We're all humans. Just forgive yourself for being a human being and make peace. And say, tomorrow's a new day. I'm starting over. There's a great story in the book about my friend, and he's riding with his wife, and they have a great weekend. And his wife starts saying about, well, I wish you'd have done more of this 10 years ago, and you did this and that and the other. And he said, you're right. There's a lot I could have done I didn't do, and I'm sorry for that. You know what he said? I'm not that guy. I worked hard to be a better husband. I'm not that person. And you know what she said? You're right. Please accept my apologies. You're not that person. You've worked very hard, and it's not fair of me to bring up stuff that somebody did 10 years ago. I'm proud of you for how hard you've worked. Well, that's a great way to look at life. Give people a break. Not only don't put ourselves in a box, don't put them in a box.
That's a very great point. I want to talk about something, Marshall, that it was the one chapter of your book that I've read probably 7 or 8 times, going back over and over again, because I think it is so important. It's the ambition, action, aspiration paragraph. But I want to go back to before, several years ago, I recognized that I was focused on ambition.
Right.
And what I found was that I would hit a rank or hit a job, be so happy that I got the job. And before I was even finished with the cake at the promotion ceremony, I was already looking to the next one.
Right.
And so, there was like this, it was almost like a hole that I just kept filling with water and it was never filling up. And now I'm more focused on aspiration, which is why I think this chapter really spoke to me. So I'd like to spend some time talking about this.
Well, to me, that is probably the part of the book that's got the best feedback. And let me just take a second. I'm going to kind of cover it for the people that didn't read it. First, what do you need for a great life? Well, you need to take care of your health. But the book is not about that. You need a middle-class level of income. And the studies have shown much beyond that. There's not much relationship between money and happiness anyway. But the book isn't about that. And you need great relationships with people you love. Assuming that you have great relationships with people you love, you got a middle-class income, and you're healthy, right? What's important? 3 things. One is you need a sense of higher aspiration. Why am I doing this? What is the purpose? You're working hard. Okay, that's nice. Why are you working hard? You need a reason to that question, why? Number 2 is then we have our ambition, and our ambitions are our achievements. We've been talking about that. And these achievements need to be aligned with our aspirations. And then third, our day-to-day actions. You need to be engaged and enjoy the process of life itself. And if your actions, your aspirations, and your ambitions are aligned, you're probably going to have a really good life. Now, we can all go off track. I'm going to talk about 3 ways. Way number 1 is some people are actually lost in their head. They're lost in higher aspirations. They have lofty goals, but they don't achieve much. And maybe they don't even enjoy the process of life. One problem with human service leaders is, and I've coached a lot of them, they often love humanity, but they hate human beings. They're so lost in this higher thing that they forget about the humans in front of them. So aspiration is a good thing, but we can get overweight aspiration. Most humans in the history of the world overweight action. They just show up every day. They show up, they do what's in front of them, they play the video game. And our ancestors were poor people. Our ancestors just every day, they try to stay alive. So this higher up stuff wasn't a big deal for them. They were just focused on day-to-day life. The listeners to us right now, because anybody listening to us right now, probably that's not their problem. Their problem is your problem. They're overly focused on the ambition phase and achievement. And we fall into a trap. Now, one thing I talk about in the book that takes people a while to realize is this: never become ego attached to results. This is exactly the point you're making. Never become ego attached to results for two reasons. One reason is you don't have total control over those results. And two, what happens, as you said, after you achieve the results? How much long-term satisfaction does that bring? A day, a week? You hadn't even gone through the ceremony. That's over. Moving on, moving on, moving on. The Buddhist term for this is called the hungry ghost. I'm always eating, but I'm never full. Let me give you two examples. One gentleman who endorsed my book, if you look at the endorsements, named Albert Bourla. Albert was CEO of Pfizer, or is the CEO of Pfizer. A couple of years ago, I asked Albert, how's it going? He said, hey, I had a great year. We came up with this vaccine, saved 1 billion lives, stock price all-time high, employee engagement through the roof. People are proud of the company. He didn't say this, but he was also CEO of the year in the United States. He said, what a year. I said, Albert, what's your challenge? He said, I have a huge problem. Next year. You see, if Albert's definition of success in life is he has to have better results than last year, he will never, ever achieve that. He will never have another year like that year. We don't want him to have another year like that year. Michael Phelps, 25 gold medals, more than anyone in history. Talk about achievement. What do you think about doing after winning number 25? Kill himself.
Yeah.
Why? Can't achieve more. Never place your value as a human being on results for two reasons. You don't control those results. And two, it doesn't bring long-term happiness. Safi Bahcall is in this group of people that led to the book. And you saw the people's names. These are big people. Safi's a great guy. He said, I finally learned something in our groups. You know what he said I learned? I finally realized, and he's a scientist, happiness and achievement are independent variables.
Yes.
Happiness and achievement are independent variables. He said, I used to believe I would be happy if I achieved more. I finally realized I'm around everybody. Everyone in these groups achieved a ton. Some are happy and some are miserable. Happiness and achievement are independent variables. I said, Safi, I'm so glad you realize this. You already have a PhD in physics from Stanford. You've started 4 companies. You're a multi-zillionaire. You wrote a New York Times bestselling book called Loon Shots, and you've consulted to presidents. Now, if that is not enough achievement to make you happy, do you really think a little more is going to matter? No. If that's not enough, let me help you, buddy. There's nothing else you can do to make a difference. And he said, you're right. Happiness and achievement are independent variables. So that's an important thing when we get fixated on achievement. And one final story that I love in the book, the marshmallow story. There's great research about this marshmallow, right? You take the kid at Stanford, they give a kid 1 marshmallow. And you say, you eat 1, you get 1. If you wait, though, 2 for you. According to this longitudinal research, which I'm a little skeptical about, the kids that eat 1 marshmallow all grow up to be losers. The kids that eat 2 are big successes. The message is, and you've heard this message in your life 1,000 times, delayed gratification is good. Delayed gratification is good. Work out more. Go on the diet. Well, here's the problem with delayed gratification. If all you do is delay gratification, you know what your life has been doing? Delay. You know what you don't get? Gratification. Here's what they didn't do in the study. They didn't take the kid with 2 marshmallows. Say, kid, wait some more. 3. Wait a little bit more. 4, 5, 10, 100, 1,000. Where does the story end? An old man sitting in a room surrounded by thousands of uneaten marshmallows. Sometimes you got to eat the marshmallow.
That is that's great advice, and it reminds me of Chris Hadfield. Chris Hadfield's I say that he's Canada's Neil Armstrong.
Yeah,
he was the first Canadian to do the spacewalk. Chris's advice was don't live for the launches.
Yeah,
because he was saying that I think he was in the space program for over 2 decades, but only spent 6 months in space.
Yeah,
and he was saying that a lot of astronauts will. I'm just doing this to get to outer space. But then there's so many other factors, budgets, is there the right makeup of the crew, the one that we want to send up, all these other factors, you could get injured. And so his advice to astronauts is just enjoy going to work every day.
Yeah.
Just enjoy the fact that you're doing work that brings you fulfillment, brings you passion.
Well, my friend Alan Mulally wanted to be an astronaut. And he was slightly colorblind. Guess what? Out. not a bad guy. He just was slightly colorblind.
So let's talk about aspiration, Marshall, because I think the point you make in the book is that ambition, like we talked about, like you're ready for the next thing, you're ready for the next piece of cake,
Right.
the next ceremony.
Yeah.
Whereas aspiration is something a little different.
Yeah. Your aspiration is, why am I doing this? Why? What is the deeper purpose? Now, again, General Shinseki had some ups and downs on his road, which I'm sure you're familiar with. On the other hand, he always had a higher aspiration. He was never doing it to get promoted or status. He saw himself as a soldier, not a general. And he always loved the troops. So he never got lost in all that status and all that other stuff. He was always very focused on the troops. And, I think very important to always have a higher aspiration of, why am I doing this? Am I serving the country? Am I working to help these kids? Why am I doing this? Other than I'm trying to get promoted and look good, or, jump over some hoop or something. Very, very important to have some higher aspiration. I was teaching a class recently at the Indian Institute of Technology. Now, let me put this in context. I went to UCLA, and I got a PhD from UCLA. Last year at UCLA, they had 165,000 applicants to get in. Indian Institute of Technology probably had 10 times that many. To get in there, you have to be like God. So a friend of mine's a billionaire. He asked me to give a talk at the Indian Institute of Technology. I'm number one thing, these are a bunch of engineers. I want to listen to some old man talk about philosophical stuff, but the place was full. That surprised me. I started talking. I think, well, they're probably going to be bored. 10 kids just start crying. Why? They never had a childhood. Their whole life was achievement. More. You know what they were told? If you ever get into Indian Institute of Technology, you got it made. Guess what happened? They got in. What happened to the level of competition?
Got greater.
It went up.
Yeah.
It went up. They're going, oh, my, well, 10 kids are crying. It's tough out there. And, depression among young people in America is an all-time high. They all believe that they have to live these dream lives. So very important to have a higher level of aspiration. Why am I doing this?
And from a resiliency standpoint, I remember in 2014, I sat down and did an exercise to figure out my higher purpose. And what I came up with was to help others lead with the best version of themselves.
Good.
And when I wrote that down, I realized that it didn't matter what I was doing. It didn't matter the job I was in. It didn't matter if I got promoted in the military. I could do that job no matter what and be completely happy doing it. Is that what you found as well when you talk to folks about kind of building resiliency, especially when a lot of stuff climbing the ladder relies on results outside of our control?
Well, I went to a program called Design the Life You Love, and it was put on by a woman named Aisha Bursell. And she asked me who are my heroes. Well, my heroes are very kind and generous people who are nice teachers. She said, you should be like these people. Well, I decided to adopt 15 people, teach them all I know for free. And the only price is when they got old, they had to give back to others. So I made a little thing, put on LinkedIn, 18,000 people applied for adoption.
Oh, wow.
Sun Yin is one of my people I've adopted, by the way. And now I've adopted, I'm the honorary father of about 400 people. Such a nice program. It's a great exercise to help people do exactly what you said. Ask yourself, who are my heroes? Who do I look up to and respect? That's probably a good statement of your values. And you know what? Be like them. My heroes are kind and generous people like Peter Drucker and Frances Hesselbein, who just died at 107. She's a hero in West Point, I can tell you. They loved her. And she's a hero of mine. I always want to be like those people. And by the way, they gave me so much and never ask anything back. So I always now try to do in my own way, give people and don't ask anything back.
That's inspirational. As we wind down our time, Marshall, and as people are listening to this and they're like, man, I'd like to have a higher meaning, live a deeper fulfillment in my life. What advice would you give them?
All right. This is my final advice. Are we ready?
We're ready, Marshall. We're ready.
This is it. This is the best coaching advice people are ever going to get in this or any other lifetime. So listen close. Take a deep breath and imagine that you're 95 years old and you're just getting ready to die. Right before you take that last breath, you're given a beautiful gift, the ability to go back in time and talk to the person listening to me right now. The ability to help this person be a better leader, much more important, the ability to help this person have a better life. What advice would that wise 95-year-old you who knows what mattered in life and what didn't, and what was important and what wasn't, what advice would that wise old person have for the you that's listening to me right now? Whatever you're thinking now, do that. In terms of a performance appraisal, that's the only one that matters. That old person says you did the right thing, you did. Person says you made a mistake, you did. You do not have to impress anybody else. Some friends of mine interviewed old folks who are dying, got to ask the question, what advice would you have? On the personal side, 3 themes. Theme number 1, 3 words, be happy now. Not next week, not next month, not next year, be happy now. Great Western disease, I'll be happy when? When I get the money status, BMW, when I get that promotion, I will be happy when. We all have exactly the same when. That old person looking to die, that is when. Don't get so busy chasing what you don't have, you can't see what you do have. Now, how old are you?
I'm 22. No, I'm 41, Marshall.
You're 41. Now, you could look at me and say, well, that's easy for that old guy to say, look at him. He's got millions of dollars and sold 3 million books and works with fancy people and blah, blah, blah. Lucky old man. I want to help you. You got something I don't have. You know what that's called? 33 years. You want the millions of bucks? You want the 3 million books? You give me the 33 years, we might have a deal here.
I'm going to push back on that, Marshall. And I want to make another point. So I lied. We got one more point to make in the podcast. I don't care about that. Like, that's not the life I want to live, you know?
Well, that's good.
And so I think, how many people do you find out there that start this path in their lives and start leaving other people's lives, not the life that they want to, because they're worried about what other people think about them?
Critical point in the book. If you want to live a great life, live your own life. Don't live through other people. Vicarious living. The example I gave was what you should not do. So if you're not doing it, that's good. Don't do it. Learning point number 2, though, is friends and family. Don't get never so busy climbing the ladder of success, you forget the people who love you. And number 3 is you have a dream, go for it. Go for it. Go for that higher aspiration, that dream. Business advice isn't much different. Number 1, life is short. Have fun. Enjoy the process of life. Number 2, do whatever you can do to help people. The main reason to help people, as you talked about, has nothing with money or status or getting ahead. The main reason to help people is much deeper. The 95-year-old you is proud of you because you did and disappointed if you don't. You don't believe that's true? Interview any CEO who has retired and ask them a question. What are you proud of? None of them ever told me how big their office was. All they've ever talked about is the people they've helped. You're lucky you realize that as a young man. You're very lucky to realize that. And the final advice is go for it. World's changing. Industry's changing. Do what you think is right. May not win, at least you tried. Old people, we seldom regret the risk we take and fail. We often regret the risk we fail to take. And finally, as I've grown older, in some ways, my level of aspiration may have gone down, but my impact's gone up. Now, what's my goal on this fine podcast? Number 1, thank you for inviting me. My goal is pretty simple. Help you and maybe some of the people listening to this podcast have a little better life. If you have a little better life based on anything I've done, or the people listening to us have a little better life based on anything I've done, you know how I feel about this podcast? Thank you. This has been a wonderful use of my time.
I'm going to put in quotes that Marshall called me a young man. Marshall, thank you so much. And it took every ounce of my self-discipline not to just end the interview and just start asking you coaching questions for my own life. So thank you so much for your time today. This was absolutely amazing. And for those listening, regardless of where you're at in your career, read The Earned Life, because as I told you, that some of these realizations that I had were 15, 16 years into my career that potentially you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years into yours, and you won't make the same mistakes that I made. So Marshall, thank you so much for your time today. This was absolutely amazing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you again for listening to another episode of From the Green Notebook podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please give us 5 stars wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us gain visibility and the opportunity to help more people on their leadership journey. Also, make sure you check out our website at www.fromthegreennotebook.com. There, you can listen to past episodes, read leadership articles written by military leaders from around the world. You can sign up for our monthly reading list email where you can learn about new books that are coming out, and our Sunday reflection email that comes out every Sunday morning. Is really short. It's a 2-minute read, but I guarantee you it's going to start your week off on the right foot. Finally, make sure you follow us on Twitter at FTGN Notebook, and you can find us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for From the Green Notebook. Again, thank you so much for coming on this journey with us. I am humbled by the opportunity to learn these lessons alongside you. So please join us next week for another episode of From the Green Notebook, where we're going to help you lead with the best version of yourself.
I came from the mud, there's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree, there's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law.